Hello everyone, welcome back to Newearth.land, where we are decommodifying shelter, energy, food and water and making those things basic human rights. Why? Because we can. We're spinning around on a microscopic rock in space. But I feel like we need to raise human consciousness if we're actually going to achieve that, right? Because that's really the driver. Remember, as Albert Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about an excerpt from Plato's Republic called The Allegory of the Cave. And I feel like it's very much analogous and absolutely valid still today in this unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in. So I'll just be breaking that down. And so let's just go straight into it and I'll see you in a bit.
Imagine prisoners that have spent their entire lives chained deep inside a cave.
So I'd say you don't have to imagine that. Just go out, have a look around, go into an office if you dare. Take a look around, start surveying the movements of people every day. Work, home, work, home, work, home, work, home, right? Let's hear from old Aldous Huxley. The victim of mind manipulation does not know that he's a victim. To him, the walls of his prison are invisible and he believes himself to be free. That he is not free is apparent only to other people because their servitude is strictly objective, okay? Chains of gold is what we're experiencing. And of course, in the adaptation in clay, you see the actual physical chains there. But remember, that is a allegory. And unfortunately, psychologically, we're falling into that mindset today of indentured servitude.
They have been chained so that they cannot see behind themselves.
Sort of like my mum and dad when they're watching the TV.
And they are forced to stare endlessly at the cave wall in front of them. Behind them, a fire is burning.
So this fire, I feel, is symbolic of the light of mind that can only be stoked when we activate both brain hemispheres. So Western education has unfortunately fractured the human mind through this disparate, very much fractionated approach to education, where you're in this room, then you're in that room, and then you're in that room. And it's like this Pavlovian model of education, right? It's splintered the mind off, pigeonholed it into various components, and prevented us from actually attaining wholly or holistic thinking. And that can only be put back together. And I feel like this is actually what's being said in Humpty Dumpty. Only Humpty Dumpty can put Humpty Dumpty back together again. That king's horses and the king's men can't. So what we need to do is we need to start stimulating the neocortex, the higher mental faculties, visualization, curiosity, awe. Wonder, remember, is the beginning of philosophy, like Socrates said.
And between the prisoners and the fire is a raised walkway. Now imagine that each day a menagerie of objects crosses the walkway. Animals and people carrying their wares to market. Their shapes create an intricate shadow play on the wall in front of the prisoners.
Oh, this could be like Match of the Day or Michael McIntyre's Comedy Roadshow or Simon Cowell's Pop Idol and the X Factor or the shit show that we call politics and shopping. Anything like this. The TV, right? People are besotted with television or the screens at work.
This is the only world that the prisoners have ever known.
Oh wow, I know someone who looks like that.
The shadows and the echoes of unseen objects. Now, imagine that the prisoner is released.
So this is what happens when you spiritually awaken, just like they show you in The Matrix, right? And also The Truman Show. But you have to get dragged into that realization. Unless, of course, you're abjectly suffering on a daily basis, in which case you will welcome spiritual illumination.
After some time adjusting to the blinding light, the freed prisoner will begin to experience the world outside of the cave for the very first time. And it is like nothing he could have ever imagined.
So this is absolutely true and echoes kind of what happened to me in 2014 when I had my Satori awakening. It happened all at once. I've used the analogy of it perhaps being like a balloon bursting or a very fine laser beam having its spotlight opened. Because remember, as Alan Watts said, attention is narrowed perception. Only through perception and wonder and curiosity and awe can we begin to broaden our horizons and awaken into a higher level of consciousness.
With his new perception of the world, the man will of course want to return to his friends to share his incredible discoveries. But the prisoners cannot recognize their old friend.
Yeah, don't try it, don't bother. It's never going to work out too well. They'll think you're insane. My mum wanted to phone the ambulance. All my friends abandoned me and generally didn't work out too well. So if anyone's going through this experience now, I'd suggest try and just internalize it. Try and find people who've also had this experience. Join groups of people who've had spiritual awakenings, and it will become a little bit more bearable for you.
He appears as all things do. His voice is a distorted echo, and his body is a grotesque shadow. They cannot understand his fantastic stories of the world outside of the cave. To them, it will never exist. This, of course, does not make the world outside of the cave any less real.
Yeah, it's no less real, right? The world and reality beyond the myopic lens of the human aperture is still absolutely valid and is still there, and people awaken to this when they have what we call a spiritual awakening. But in that word lies, unfortunately, a knee-jerk reaction to many atheists, which is another religion. So we have ultimately the religionists in the cave and the people who actually experience chemical wedding and they experience a spiritual illumination of sorts are scraped out of the cave. They try and communicate things to the world that have, been unfortunately besotted by television, mass media. They're in a sort of consensus trance. People cannot accept or understand, just like he shows in the allegory, right? It's like a different language. And so if I hold some fingers up behind my back, for example, the only way of you knowing that, how many I've actually got holding up here, is by walking around and finding out for yourself, which takes effort. So instead, people would rather continue with their lives believing or doubting how many fingers. Oh, I think he's got 2, he's got 3, he's got 4. You can only know when you bridge the left and the right brain hemisphere and you start to, like they show you in The Matrix and The Truman Show, going out into nature on your own and start to contemplate visualization, imagination. Remember, as Carl Jung said, those who look outside dream, those who look inside awake. And as the Oracle of Delphi once said, heed these words, you who wish to probe the depths of nature. How do you expect to find outside yourself that which you seek? Hidden within is the treasure of treasures. Know thyself, and thou shalt know the universe and the gods. So this would reconcile this very much like polarized debate that we have at the moment between atheism and religion. Because as soon as I speak out about religion, apparently that makes me an atheist. And then as soon as I speak out about atheism, now I'm a religionist. But standing above that is the scientific clergy, the people who fully actually understand and comprehend. They know that all of this is a psyop. So we need to stop believing and doubting. We need to just start transcending that and actually start to know through direct experience that what we call God is simply the very fabric of space and time itself, right? So let's try and bridge these masculine and feminine traits so that we can start to elevate human consciousness and live in a better world as a result. Remember, Newearth.land is all about creating true freedom, abundance and well-being in the world. Those are going to be the manifestations that we experience once we get our minds sorted out. So we need to sort that out first, because as we think, so we feel, so we act. The reason we're living in this perpetual nightmare at the moment is because we are not experiencing the light of mind. We're not doing things in a coordinated, conscious manner. We're unfortunately being lobotomized year in, year out by mainstream media, the television, the news, so on and so forth, and all of the entertainment and the politics, when the solution is so simple. Come together and crowdfund land, crowdfund democratic housing environments that freely provide shelter, energy, food and water as basic human rights. Then we will begin to thrive on this planet. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you very much. Do check out Newearth.land, and thanks very much for watching.